All right, everybody, let's go live. How's it going? Chuck Holton here, coming to you from the Lodge in West Virginia. We made it back yesterday. We traveled all day yesterday and got back after dark last night, which here in the north is at about 4:30. And that's kind of jarring if you've been down in Panama where the seasons don't change that much. And so the sun goes down at pretty much the same time, 6:30 at night, all year round. And then you come here and all of a sudden it's getting, you're like, what? It's like 4 o'clock. It's getting dark. What's going on? So thank you for watching the Hot Zone. We got some concerning events to talk about. Yesterday, the FBI announced the arrest of 4 people that were accused of plotting a series of coordinated, improvised explosive device bombings that would be targeting multiple locations in Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. We're going to talk all about it, and we're going to show you how this ties into a disturbing trend. And then we're going to talk about what you can do about it as we go on. But before we do that, folks, it's coming up to the end of the year, and if you haven't funded your 401k or IRA this year, you're running out of time to do it. Of course, you can write that off your taxes and so save some money that way, but also that money grows tax-free. But you don't just have to put it into a mutual fund or into stocks. You can actually put physical gold and silver into your retirement account. And that's the best way to do it, because putting some derivative of gold in there is not as safe as putting real physical gold into it. My friends at Preserve Gold can help you figure out how to do that. All you have to do is text the word Chuck to 50505, and you can get a free wealth protection guide, as well as you go to their website here. You see that preservegold.com/Chuck-Holton, and actually you can go preservegold.com/hot zone. But they will talk you through the process. And if you want to get some physical gold or silver to give to your kids or grandkids for Christmas, you might still have time to get it to your house by then. They can ship it right to your door. So thank you to Preserve Gold, and folks, definitely check them out. They are honest people who will make it very simple for you to do what you need to do with your retirement account. All right. So let's go back to this issue here. The suspects that were arrested are alleged members of a radical Antifa organization called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. And you might go, what, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? What are we talking about here? Turtle Island? Well, the TILF, Turtle Island Liberation Front, is all about, I don't know if you've heard this before, but there are some radical and extremist environmentalist groups, some indigenous groups, and leftists, but I repeat myself, who refer to planet Earth as Turtle Island, and specifically to North America as Turtle Island. So they're all about liberating Turtle Island from all the people that live there. And to call it an extremist group is being sort of ridiculous, because it's very extremist. I mean, it's beyond that. It's an understatement is what I'm saying. They are driven by pro-Palestinian sentiments, anti-enforcement views, law enforcement, and anti-government ideology. There was also a 5th person that was separately arrested in Louisiana, in New Orleans, in connection with a related violent plot. And so that brings the total number of detainees to 5. Federal authorities described the operation as disrupting a credible imminent terrorist threat, crediting an intense multi-agency investigation with preventing potential mass casualties during the holiday celebrations. Look, this is extremely concerning. I've been doing lives about this. You've seen the lives I've done where I talked about the war on Christmas, how they're attacking Christmas celebrations, whether that's a Christmas market or a Christmas tree lighting or a church event or something like that. We just saw the Hanukkah attack in Bondi Beach in New South Wales Australia a couple days ago that so far has killed 16 people and left more than 40 wounded. This was carried out by two ISIS-affiliated father and son from Pakistan who had gone to the Philippines prior to this and gone to some sort of military training camp in the Philippines to learn how to, kill people more efficiently. I'm not sure exactly where in the Philippines, but I can guess, because if you go down to the island of Mindanao, there is a large contingent of extremist Muslim groups down there that call themselves the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, MILF for short. Don't go look that up on the internet. But wherever they went, apparently they went and got some military training in the Philippines, and then they went back to Australia and carried out that attack. Now, there are more and more details coming out about that attack in Australia that just kind of make you shake your head, and definitely reach for your pistol whenever you plan to go out and go anywhere, because there were plenty of police around. It was only a 3-minute walk from the police station, but yet those two terrorists were able to open fire on a crowd of thousands of people on the beach and continue firing at them for 20 minutes before they were finally taken down. And the person who took down the one that was killed, the one terrorist that was killed, was an off-duty police detective who happened to have his firearm on him. He just had a pistol, like a Glock 19, and so a 9mm pistol. And so he actually managed to shoot one of the terrorists from 40 yards. I don't know if you've been out to the range lately, but next time you're out on the range, try shooting a target with your pistol, a man-sized target with your pistol from 40 yards. That's a real long shot. And not only that, but he was doing it under stress, being shot back at. And so that guy's a hero. We also found out about two other heroes in that, who sadly were the first two who lost their lives. As soon as the terrorists got out of their car with the weapons, there was an elderly gentleman and his wife that were walking by on the sidewalk, and they saw what was about to happen and attacked the terrorists and almost succeeded at disarming one of them before the husband was shot. And then the wife was shot as well. They were the first two casualties of that very sad moment there. But unbelievable, there were female police officers that refused to go in to the battle and try to stop it. One of them, even after the terrorists were taken down, refused to go up to help corral the remaining alive terrorists. There's a video where she's seen holding onto the police car while one of her co-workers is trying to pull her off the police car and get her to go up there and help out. And she's so terrified, she won't go up there. Look, you don't have to be, the cowardice is not in any way, shape, or form a female trait. Women are typically incredibly brave, but just not, I still don't believe females should be police officers. And that's me being a dinosaur, I know, but that you just see so many situations where a woman gets overpowered, or her partner gets overpowered because she's not strong enough to help her partner in a situation, and it goes badly either for the police or for the perpetrators. I know of one case where a friend of mine who was a female cop was attacked by a mentally deranged guy, and she couldn't get him off of her, and he was reaching for her gun. And so her partner had to shoot that guy in the head. And really, he was just, anybody that was strong enough could have just put him in a headlock and gotten him off of her. But because he went for her gun, he had to get killed. So, no tremendous compassion for that guy. But bottom line is, the police in Bondi Beach were a clown show. They were a clown show. And of course, the first thing that they do is come out and say, well, we don't know anything about the, we can't speculate on the motive here. We don't know anything about the motive. So they wanted to not call it terrorism, although they are now calling it terrorism. And then the next thing they do is they start saying, we got to crack down on guns. We got to get tighter gun laws. Australia already has some of the tightest gun laws in the world. And the two terrorists were on a watch list already, but yet while they were on that watch list, the terror watch list, and they were actually implicated in another terror attack, and they were questioned over an earlier terror attack. One of them was allowed to buy 6 guns in a country that, I mean, what? And the police only had pistols, which again makes it a little bit more of a challenge to fight back. It's not impossible. There are people out there saying there's no way you can beat, assault rifle in a gunfight if you only have a pistol. That's false. You can certainly beat an assault rifle, especially if the guy with the assault rifle hasn't gone to the range and you have. But suffice it to say that things could have been handled much better there. And kudos to those brave people who did their best to try to stop it, including running up and just throwing things at the terrorists. So back to the Los Angeles issue here. Here's what the FBI had to say about it.
I'll highlight some of the items found during those searches over the weekend. For example, in Carroll's residence, law enforcement found multiple posters and materials associated with Turtle Island Liberation Front, including posters stating, quote, "Death to America, long live Turtle Island and Palestine," and, quote, "Death to ICE, Turtle Island Liberation Front." In Page's residence, law enforcement found a copy of the detailed bomb attack plan. This case is another reminder about the dangers that radicalized Antifa-like groups pose to public safety and the rule of law.
Now that he's talking about the Turtle Island Liberation Front. And if you've never heard of that before, you could be forgiven for that, because I've never heard of that before either. But apparently it's a Trantifa, not Antifa style extremist group that is, and you see all of these toxic ideologies mixed together. So where you find the Antifa ideology, you also find the trans ideology, you also find the pro-Palestinian ideology, you also find the extremist environmentalism ideology, and so on and so forth. So all of these organizations are dangerous. They all bleed into one another. As you've heard me say before, I used to go to protests all around the United States for about 2 years during the first Trump administration. And one thing I noticed was that all of the protesters go to all of the protests, no matter what it is. As long as it's a left-wing protest, they're all there. So if it's an anti-gun protest in Washington, D.C., you'll have the Trantifa people there talking about trans rights. You'll have the gay and lesbian people there. You'll have the environmentalist people there. Everybody. They all go. And then they all support each other at each other's events. And the other thing that I noticed was that these people are professionals, meaning they do this for a living, and they go around the country and go to protests, and they've figured out ways to get paid to protest. In some cases, they get grants from organizations as diverse as the Sierra Club and the U.S. government. In other cases, they make money by intentionally getting themselves arrested and then suing the city for wrongful arrest or excessive use of force. And when they do that, many of these cities realize they make an economic decision, and they say, if we fight this lawsuit, it's going to cost us $250,000 in legal fees. So we'll just offer the protesters that are suing us like a settlement of $50,000 to go away, and they'll just go, they'll take that and they'll go away. And so the Antifa guys do this over and over and over and over again and actually make a living at it. They actually make money doing that. So one of the people who was arrested in this roundup out in the desert. Let's talk about what exactly they did. They reportedly planned a series of bombings that were supposed to begin on New Year's Eve, and they were aimed at 5 specific locations across Los Angeles, and most of them were like Amazon distribution centers, things like that, where there's a lot of people working there, and it represents capitalism and consumerism and all that sort of stuff. And they were going to blow that. But they also intended to hit ICE agents and their vehicles, going after ICE facilities and things like that. They were in the final stages of preparation for these attacks. I mean, we're just a couple weeks away. And so they were actually going out in the Mojave Desert to test these IEDs that they were making. And when they got out into the Mojave Desert and they were preparing to test those IEDs, they were being watched by I think a drone or maybe an aircraft of some sort that belonged to the FBI. And the FBI swooped in and arrested them before they could actually put any of these explosive devices together. So they had all the precursor materials, they had all of the pipe bombs and things like that. They were all ready to make them and test them out in the Mojave Desert, and then they were arrested. Now, the TILF, the Turtle Island Liberation Front, is a fringe organization that blends indigenous sovereignty rhetoric, referencing Turtle Island as a term for North America, and then radical pro-Palestinian activism. They are not releasing all the information about the specific targets because they're still investigating, but they emphasize that the targets would have been high-profile areas during peak New Year's Eve festivities, potentially causing widespread panic and death and destruction. Now, the 4 primary suspects were apprehended in Lucerne Valley, which is a remote desert community east of Los Angeles, where they were, as I said, testing their explosive devices. They've been identified as a 30-year-old Audrey Carroll, 32-year-old Zachary Page, Dante Gaffield, 24 years old, and 41-year-old Tina Lai, L-A-I. Turns out she appears to be Chinese. And that introduces a whole nother sort of head-scratching element into this, because the oldest and what you would assume to be the ringleader of this is a Chinese woman. And we know that Chinese, even just Chinese people that are any Chinese citizen who is in the United States is duty bound to follow the laws of China, even if they're not in China. And China has literally been caught setting up Chinese police stations in Canada and the United States to police their own citizens outside of China. And one of the laws says that if the Chinese government calls and requires something of you in terms of a secret mission or something, you have to do it. So I don't know if the investigation will uncover anything about that just yet, but that's certainly something interesting to keep an eye on. Tina Lai, 41 years old. Now, the 5th individual hasn't been named yet, but all 5 of them are facing federal charges, including conspiracy, possession of a destructive device. The New Orleans arrest happened independently, but was linked to the same subgroup, the TILF subgroup, and that suggests a broader network of planned violence. So this is due to a collaborative effort that involved the FBI, the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's offices in the Central District of California, and local law enforcement in those areas. It has been described as an intense probe, which probably means that it hasn't been going on for a long time, but they put a lot of resources into it in a short period of time. And it leveraged intelligence on the group's online activities and tips that then escalated to imminent threat status. Now, you just think about how these devices could have maimed or killed dozens, if not hundreds of people in the United States. And my next question is, how many of these potential attacks are not getting thwarted? Are there more? Because if there's one in LA and one in New Orleans, both tied to the, Turtle Island Liberation Front, there certainly could be more. FBI Director Kash Patel broke the news via social media and said that over the weekend, they disrupted a credible imminent terrorist threat and arrested 4 individuals connected to the Los Angeles area. He also mentioned the one that took place in New Orleans as well. Now, here's the real scary part. We have a problem in America, and this problem is just getting started. I alluded to it before. It's the toxic nexus of radical environmentalism, jihadism, and the Antifa movement, okay? Black Bloc and all that sort of thing. Now, I want you to look at this map, because this is just a picture of some of the, oh, by the way, here's one of the people that was attacked. Whoops, we got to take that down. I forgot to take that one off. There we go. Here's one of the people who is now in custody. She looks like a real Tomb Raider, doesn't she? I mean, Laura Croft, that's probably her hero. She looks really, really super dangerous, but bombs don't care if you're fat or skinny. If they figured out how to put a bomb together, it could have been bad. And now I've got this map of various, it's a little fuzzy. I'm not sure why this map is fuzzy, but it shows places around the country where there have been uncovered extremist organizations where, like, for example, if you start on the left-hand side in Seattle, Washington, you've got a hybrid fundamentalist group and an Algerian armed Islamic group, both in Seattle. There's, Portland, San Francisco, Santa Clara, Los Angeles, San Diego, Tucson, Arizona, Tulsa, Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas have been uncovered in Tulsa. Oklahoma City, Arlington, Texas, Columbus, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, Chicago, Detroit, Plainfield, Indiana, I-5NA, and Muslim Brotherhood. In New York, of course, lots of them, Boston, Cleveland, Laurel, Maryland, Potomac, Maryland, which is a very wealthy community. Hezbollah has been uncovered there. Suspected members of Al-Qaeda in Herndon, Virginia, Hamas in Springfield, Virginia, Islamic Jihad in Raleigh, North Carolina, Hezbollah in Charlotte, North Carolina, Orlando, Florida, Al-Qaeda, Tampa, Islamic Jihad. This is, okay, so if you're looking at these, this map is outdated. Now, ask yourself who is allowing all these Islamic groups to form in America. Okay, this map doesn't include members of the CCP that are here, Hezbollah's Unit 910, and other saboteurs from Iran or North Korea or Venezuela who could also be in our country. This doesn't include the gangs that we know are all across the United States. All that to say, folks, it's a dangerous environment that you live in if you're in the United States. And it used to be, well, if I'm not in a very built up urban area, then I'm probably okay. But that's no longer the case. One of the Christmas attacks in the United States took place in Concord, North Carolina, a small town. And it's likely that some of these groups are gathering together and have compounds or houses, safe houses or whatever. And if they're going to have those, they're probably not going to have them in very built up areas with lots of police. They're going to look for more rural areas. I read a long article about the Patriot Front the other day, putting together a compound in Tennessee and threatening their neighbors and doing all kinds of crazy stuff out there. I don't think they're much that we really need to be worried about. The number of actual white supremacist terror organizations in the United States is very, very, very small. But if you recall, during the Biden administration, President Biden got up and said that the biggest terror threat to America are white supremacists. That is not true. Antifa is much larger. When you add in all the pro-Palestinian, and those are not just Arabs, by the way. The pro-Palestinian people, they're not just Arabs. They are regular American kids who are being indoctrinated at school or at college to hate the Jews, to hate Israel, etc. Here's a video of a kid in New York City dressed as a Hamas terrorist saying he wants to kill Zionists. And I just want you to see what the guy interviewing him is a Jew. And when he reveals to him that he's actually Arab, an Arab Jew, the kid his mind is just blown. He doesn't know what to do. Take a listen.
Fighting the Zionists. Yeah.
Omar, are you going to go kill Jews?
We're not going to kill Zionists.
You're going to kill Zionists?
Zionists.
How many Zionists do you want to kill?
As many as I can.
You want to kill as many Zionists as you can?
Yeah, Zionists. I'm a Zionist.
That's interesting. How old are you that you want to kill Zionists?
Huh?
So you want to kill me?
You're a Zionist?
I am a Zionist. So you want to kill me?
Let's go to Palestine and we'll celebrate.
You want to kill me right here?
Left to Palestine.
So you want to kill me because I'm a Zionist? Do you want to? What is a Zionist? Give me the definition of a Zionist.
You're the definition. Well, you're the definition of Zionism.
So what's the definition of Zionism? You want to kill us? Just tell me what's the definition. Why do you want to kill Zionists?
Because all they care about is killing all the Arabs.
All the
Arabs.
Arabs?
Yeah.
I'm Arab. I'm from Yemen and Egyptian. How they want to kill all the Arabs?
You're Yemeni and Egyptian?
Yes, I'm Yemeni and Egyptian. Habibi.
So his mind just explodes right there, and he's not sure what to do. But that kid looks like he grew up in America. He sounds like he grew up in America. Aside from the fact that I believe he's breaking some sort of law by, calling for the death of Zionists. But you saw there, he couldn't even tell you what a Zionist was. He doesn't even know. He's been taught to hate them. That's all. And this is something that we've got to get a handle on, folks. We've got to get away from this hate-based tribalism where, I hate anything and everything that belongs to the other tribe. And and then the other tribe hates everything and anything that belongs to my tribe. We have to be able to think for ourselves and not be so tribal and call things evil if they're evil and good if they're good, no matter which side they're on. This is very important, and that it's a very Christian thing to do. Now, the other thing I've got is this. This is the Turtle Island Liberation Front's Facebook page, and I just want to show you. They say liberation through decolonization and tribal sovereignty. What does that mean? They're in Los Angeles. That means 99% of the people in Los Angeles or in America would have to leave or be killed because they want to decolonize. What they mean by that is they want to get rid of anybody who's not an American Indian. And that's all of us. And it's, of course, it's not going to happen, but they are calling for violence in order to make it happen. This is what they're saying. This is from their site. Peaceful protest will never be enough. Peaceful protest will never be enough. They're saying we have to use violence to achieve our objectives. And they're right, because peacefully protesting and telling 99% of Americans to leave and move somewhere else is not going to work. And so they're going to have to use violence. And the problem is, think about this. The 4 people that we know their names that were arrested in Los Angeles were, except for the Chinese lady, were in their 20s and 30s. They've got a long life ahead of them. They're young people. And yet they believe so strongly in decolonization. And I wonder if they could even, tell you what that means. But they believe so strongly in it that they're willing to murder hundreds or thousands of Americans with bombs that they have made with their own hands, knowing full well that they will likely at least go to jail for the rest of their lives to do that. But they are so sold out to this ideology of hate that they're like, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to be known for murdering a bunch of people. Okay. Now we have here.
Okay.
Another group of people. I'm going to turn the audio off here. This happened in Sydney, Australia. This is yesterday, a pro-Palestinian march, one day after the Bondi Beach massacres. And there are police walking along with them to protect them, to make sure that nobody bothers them and lets them have their march that is literally calling for the death of Zionists, at least, many of whom live right there in Sydney, Australia. So, there you go. That ideology of hate, whether or not it stems from Antifa, trans ideology, whether it stems from radical environmentalism or pro-Palestinian movement, it is toxic, it's dangerous, and it has to be hunted down and torn out by the roots in our cultures and thrown into the fire. We've got to put a stop to this, because otherwise it will not get any better. Now, I got thinking about this because this has all the hallmarks of a radical religion, not just not just a political ideology, but this is a religious ideology. And this is why the ends justify the means gets toxic real fast. First of all, when the planet becomes the highest good and people are less valuable than the planet, people are the only thing on planet Earth that reflect the image of God. Okay, we were made in the image of God. And so when people start to worship the creation instead of the creator, whether that's worshiping themselves, like some of our politicians, or worshiping the environment, or worshiping animals, or worshiping anything like that, when those things become the highest good, every other value gets demoted. Human life, democracy, law, even truth. And that's why these people can just look you in the eye and say that a man can certainly have babies or something like that, because if they have thrown the baby out with the bathwater, they've thrown truth out as they have taken on this ideology whereby the planet or trans rights or anything like that becomes the highest good. It's simple and it's horrifying. And if the stakes are infinite for them, if they believe, well, the planet's going to die if we don't, get serious about this, then any cost is acceptable, no matter how many people die. And so that kind of ideology rewards escalation, not effectiveness. Extremist ecosystems tend to prize commitment signals over results. So peaceful, boring process, voting, trying to manufacture policy, social engineering, incremental, they can't do that. There's no time for that. Dramatic action is what looks pure to them. It looks just. Taking dramatic action, even if that's shooting 2 young people in the face as they leave a Jewish event in Washington, D.C. You can't just protest against the Jews. You got to find a way to murder the Jews, is what they say. And that obviously leads down the road. There's a very, very slippery slope here. These movements, you can see over time where they are now selecting for the most radical personalities within them. And that's why these people actually get a platform. You see people getting a platform calling for the death of Zionists, or, all this kind of stuff. Any ideology that dehumanizes their enemy and says these people are not, we're made in the image of God, but these other human beings over here, they're not made in the image of God. They're animals. They're savages. Well, there are people that are savages for sure, but they're still made in the image of God. And this is the thing that I think grieves God the most, is that they've been so taken captive by the devil to do his will that they can be used to do things that are so corrupt, that are so evil, that they could be looked at as savage. But remember, their worldview says that evil is good and good is evil. So they look at good people as if they're evil, and they call you and I subhuman, animals, savages, whatever. And so violence for them starts to feel like hygiene instead of harm. It starts to feel like they can commit violence, and because these are not actual humans, these are vermin that need to be wiped out. And it gives them kind of a moral permission slip. A lot of people don't want to be violent, but they do want to feel brave. And so by painting their struggle as a brave struggle, they can, and an apocalyptic struggle, it offers them a story where violence becomes heroism. They're thinking somewhere in the back of their brain, history will thank me for this. And it's that same script that's fueled political violence pretty much forever. Another big problem with these events is that they invite copycats. The violent extremism, whether it takes the form of a mass shooting, of a bombing, of a ramming attack, or whatever, it makes other incel extremists out there look at their lives and go, hey, maybe I could do something with myself too. Maybe it is actually pure and just for me to go out and eliminate these vermin. And so we've actually, I've seen studies where, for example, they had a spate of suicides of people jumping in front of trains in Austria. And every time it happened, the media would come and they'd make a big deal out of it, and they'd make a big story, and they'd put the person's face on camera, and they'd say their name, and they'd talk about them and what led them to kill themselves by jumping on train tracks. And what they found was that just more and more and more people were jumping on the train tracks. And they realized that the media reporting it, the way that they reported it, could elevate the act to something of a hero or a martyrdom status. And so they ban the media from showing their face or telling their name. That's all. And the incidence of people jumping in front of trains dropped off a cliff. That's why I don't like to mention the names of people who engage in mass violence. In this case, I did, because they didn't actually engage in mass violence yet. They were just captured trying to. but number two, because I wanted to point out the ringleader being a Chinese woman. But the media making these people famous makes it very likely that there will be more and more of these events. On top of that, not only does it invite copycats, but it invites crackdowns. It invites the government to take away more of our liberty to try to deliver just a little bit of safety. And folks, the answer to helping people be safer is not to take away more of their liberty. It's to give them more liberty. It's to encourage them to exercise the liberty that they have of self-defense. And so the religious parallel here matters, because these people have thrown out actual religion, which is compassionate, loving, helping, serving, okay? Actual religion. And they've replaced it with their radical environmentalism, their trans-Tifa and ideology, whatever. But they've turned those things into something sacred. And once you have those, then the violence can be reframed as a necessary sacrifice, a defensive war, even when it's aggression against others. This is exactly what Vladimir Putin did with the Russians before, in the lead up to the war in Ukraine. This is exactly what Hamas does all the time with the small children in Gaza. I frame this as a religious struggle, and you will please God by sacrificing yourself in this way. What that does to society is it normalizes political violence. It erodes the rule of law. It polarizes the society more and more and more, and creates martyrs for people that are arrested or killed for trying to set these out. So we have to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not going to, number one, participate in these kinds of tribal us versus them arguments, where those people over there are not even human, so they just need to be killed. Now, obviously, there are people on planet Earth that have been breathing too long. There are people on planet Earth who the best possible thing to do to them would be to end their existence. And that's actually biblical. If you look at Romans 13, talks about God establishing governments, and the governments establishing police and military. And the Bible calls them God's agents of wrath against the evildoer. Okay, that there should be people that we designate to deliver the wrath of the state, deliver the wrath of the people on people that are evil. And people that are evil give up their right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. So there are people that do need to take a dirt nap, assume room temperature, but we can't point out an entire group, whether it's an ideology. What I would never say is all people who believe that trans people are real and that they should be, not just accepted, but actually elevated in our society. Everybody should be accepted, but there are lots of people that should not be elevated to mythical hero status. I would never say that those people all need to be wiped out. We should never say all the people who believe that the earth is headed off a cliff and that people are responsible for global climate change and that therefore, we need to pass law, whatever. Yeah, I disagree with those people, but I would never say all those people need to be wiped out. Now, I had a conversation with a group one time. I interviewed a guy who was part of an organization that was trying to get college kids across the United States to get themselves sterilized before they had any children. And they figured if we can get enough people to sterilize themselves, then the world will, the humanity will just die off, and the world will go back to being the way that it was intended to be originally, without any people. And so then I asked the guy, intended by whom? Who, if all the people are gone, who intended it to be? Who intended the world to be without people? And he said, well, Mother Earth, of course. I said, so you mean God? No, I don't believe in God. Well, but you're taking the earth, which is something that's not human, and you're anthropomorphizing it into something with feelings, will, emotions, right? A mind. And so you're essentially calling it the same thing that I call God, is a transcendent being who has a design for the earth. Okay. And you're saying that God, your God, wants all the people to die off. And so I said, well, I think you got a point there. So all the people who think like you should definitely follow your advice and not have kids. Meanwhile, I'm going to have as many kids as I can, and I'm going to train them to be good people. And then we don't have to worry about people like you anymore. So I'm not saying you should all die off, but if you believe that you should sterilize yourself and not have any kids, more power to you, man. Have a long, happy life, right? And don't have any kids, because you're going to ruin them anyway. So, and that's why I think adoption is so powerful, because you're taking a kid that likely would have grown up in a terrible environment and maybe turned into a terrible person, and you're taking the opportunity to try at least to make them into a decent, upstanding citizen. And I think more people should do that. So these organizations or these ideologies, whatever it is, they have all of the hallmarks of a religion. They have things that count for, like in Garden of Eden, the world was pure and undefiled before human beings showed up. They have a fall and the concept of sin. Sin is driving your gas guzzler to work. There's a redemption. You can buy carbon credits to offset your gas guzzler and thereby be redeemed. And, so they have all of the hallmark. They certainly have high priests. Al Gore is the high priest of the environmentalist movement. The bottom line is we have to pressure our, number one, we've got to not engage in these ideologies ourselves. Number two, we've got to call them out wherever we see them and say that they're stupid. We need to be intolerant of those worldviews, because some things are just stupid, and you should be intolerant of things that are stupid. That's what being an honorable person is all about, is treating things with respect that deserve respect, and treating things with scorn that deserve scorn. That's being honorable. Okay. We need to pressure our Congress critters to pass laws against organizations like this, and to not pass laws that give up our freedom to protect ourselves, not pass laws that give up our freedom of privacy, not pass laws that sell out, take our tax dollars and use them to support organizations like the Earth First movement or the radical environmentalist movement. There is something that the EPA had called environmental justice grants, that they were giving millions of dollars to radical environmentalist organizations who were using those dollars to break the law. For example, going into coal mines and chaining themselves, trespassing, chaining themselves to the gates or to the bulldozers or whatever, so that they couldn't do their jobs and get the coal out, things like that. And then they would use the money they got from their environmental justice grants to pay for the trespassing fines and bail themselves out of jail and go do it again tomorrow. Daryl Hannah was arrested right here in West Virginia, not far from where I'm sitting, at one of these protests where they went and tried to shut down a coal mine. And my friend of mine actually arrested her. And of course, she did it as a publicity stunt, but they should definitely increase the penalties for things like that. And they will only increase the penalties for things like that if we pressure our elected representatives to do so. So we need to get on that. All right, folks, we got more than 1,500 people watching, and I wanted to just ask you to please do me a favor and go over to chuckholton.com. If you'd like to get more of my writing, if you'd like to get more of my documentaries, if you'd like to get more of my books, lots of great stuff we've got coming. If you'd like to sign up for one of our tours that we do around the world, you can do that over there at chuckholton.com. You can also sign up to support us over there. And I want to just specifically thank somebody anonymously gave more than $500 in one donation yesterday for the single mothers that we're supporting and trying to get them help. You know, I have a real heart for single mothers because I have a real loathing for men who abdicate their responsibility to their family, who abandon their families. And so I try to pick up the slack, because it's one thing to just complain about people abandoning their families, but it's another thing to do something about it. And so we're trying to do something about it by finding these single mothers and supporting them in a way that helps them get to the next level, helps them move on and be able to support themselves and take care of themselves, and not come to the United States illegally to try to sign up for a welfare program. And those things have been pretty successful so far. And we just we're working with now branching out into Panama as well. So you can support that by going to the Cartagena Project there on Give, Send, Go, or just by becoming a supporter at chuckholton.com. So I appreciate all of you doing that. Now, let's see if we've got some comments and questions here. Oh gosh, we got a whole lot. I used to work security in Boston, Sherpa says. I used to work security in Boston, near where the Marathon bombing happened. Yeah, I was there the day after that. Do you see it worse than 9/11 coming to Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C.? There are plans. The terrorists in our midst, again, all of them, the jihadists, the environmentalists, and the Antifa people, they're all planning things against the United States. And it may happen in New York or Boston, or it may happen in your town, wherever you are. Next question. The people caught are communists. Why didn't the FBI say what they are? Not far left, but communist. How are we going to defeat an enemy we can't even name? It's not just communism. They were also trans rights activists as well, and pro-Palestinian activists as well. And so they did name that, but I agree. We should say that they're communist if they're communists. Becky Johnson asks, was that the 10 U.S. Navy helicopter surveillance last night off the coast of L.A.? I don't know. Probably not. If it was off the coast, that was probably some sort of training exercise. Next question. Do you think that America wins World War III on our homeland by the Islamic communist nations? No, I don't think the U.S. is going to win this war as a nation. I think the United States is eventually just going to balkanize into several different countries. And that will be painful. They couldn't run a government, but they want to destroy this one. What then? They just want anarchy is what they're looking for. These are anarchists. That's what Antifa is all about. Next question. How come the Philippines are allowed to host a terrorist training camp? They're not allowed necessarily. There's just a lot of them there. And the government, there's a lot of islands in the Philippines. The government doesn't have as much control on some of those islands than they do on others. And there's a large force of Islamic jihadists that are affiliated with ISIS. Again, they call themselves the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. And I've done some reporting. I got shot at by one of their snipers one time when I was in the city of Marawi in southern Philippines. So there are areas where they can put together camps and get that training. Rudy Martinez says all different ideologies so that in the end, Islam wins outright. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. Islam will not win in the end. If you read the Bible, you know what the end is going to look like, and it'll get worse and worse and worse until Christ returns. The next question, where will you and your family be spending Christmas? Right here in this house. We're all coming in, except for my son, Nathan, and his wife, Rubina. We're going to have the whole family here, and we're very sad Nathan and Rubina can't make it, but their baby doesn't have a passport yet, so they couldn't get here. Tim Labs, when it comes to Antifa and those other domestic terrorist groups, what do you follow? Do you follow the reporting of Andy Ngo, and how reliable is he? Andy is a good journalist. He is quite reliable, and I do follow him. Next question. Considering they were caught, wouldn't that make other cells and groups even more cautious and dangerous now? That's a good point, KP. Yeah, I mean, you could make that case for sure. Next question. Are people who are arrested for probably being terrorists able to be held without bail or bond for the safety of citizens before being released from jail? It's possible. The question is where they're arrested and what they're arrested for. If they're arrested in a leftist jurisdiction, there's likely they're going to get let out. So, if it's Seattle or Portland or something, you're out of luck. Next question. If gun bans were less strict, bystanders could intervene and limit casualties. I agree. But how would you explain that the last tragedy in Australia dates to 1996? In the USA, it's weekly. Well, that's not true. There are other tragedies that have taken place in Australia. They just don't do it with firearms as much. They use cars and ram people, or they use knives and stab people, or they use acid and throw it in people's faces. And there have been quite a few attacks, and maybe not as many as there have been in the United States. But keep in mind that when you look at the actual statistics in the United States, about 80% of gun violence in the U.S. is gang related. Okay, if you were to take the gangs out of it, the United States is not actually as violent a country as it looks. So I've talked about this before, how the gang violence relates back to fatherlessness, and fatherlessness relates back to welfare programs. Those things started during the New Deal, and during the New Deal, when we started all these welfare programs, we started to see a rise in fatherlessness in inner city communities and across the country. So that fatherlessness led to gangs, which led to the gang violence we see today. And in fact, two of the mass attacks that we've seen in the United States around Christmas this year have both been related to gangs, one in Chicago and one in North Carolina. Next question. Did the Ukrainian Navy just sink a Russian submarine in the port of Novorossiysk? They claim to have struck a submarine. The Russians say it didn't do any damage. But that submarine is not underwater now. It's at the surface. So it's likely that it did do some damage, but it didn't sink it. Next question. Chuck, everything you warned about is happening. I wrote a book about this time last year. We brought it out. It's called Death of Civilization. You can get a copy right now on Amazon, or you can just become a supporter at chuckholton.com, and you can download a free copy of that book. Either way, I lay out in that book concrete steps you can take in today's environment in the United States to make you and your community safer, not just you and your family, but you and your whole community safer. And it's based on tried and true methods. So go get the book. It Happens 11 says, I wish I understood what was really going on with Ukraine and the Bidens. Over 40 biolabs in Ukraine. No, they're okay. Biolabs are not bioweapons labs. And I shouldn't even take the time to do this because I've explained this so many times, but I went to the site of the labs that the United States was, several of the labs the United States was funding in Ukraine. They were not bioweapons labs. They were veterinary clinics, things like that. And they were labs that the United States was investing in to try to increase their capability of determining whether a certain pathogen that they found was naturally occurring or state occurring, meaning made by a nation state like Russia. And that was part of an early warning network that was put together by the United States in order to help us be safer in the United States. Now, some of those in China got out of hand, but we were doing that around the world. And but we were not creating bioweapons in those labs. Most of the sites that Russia claims were bioweapons labs in Ukraine were actually apartment buildings or heat pump areas or power substations or things like that. They were not. How many of the three are legal American citizens? They're not saying. I think we probably would know by now if they were illegals, however. But I'm mostly interested in the Chinese woman. Okay, thank you, Bob, for gifting the 5 Hot Zone memberships. I appreciate you for doing that. Jerry D says, did the FBI stop an attack or made stuff up to make themselves look better? Well, I wouldn't say the rank and file members of the FBI are clowns. You could not advance in the FBI or any government position, even the military, over the last 4 years, unless you had kissed the woke ring. So Dan Bongino and Kash Patel have had a really serious job ahead of them to try to weed out those people and to try to return the FBI to its actual intended purpose. But I think they're doing a pretty good job at that. And so I don't think all of the FBI are clowns. Wendy says, now those are built-in bookcases. Are you in authentic log cabin? Yes, I am. This is it. It's called Maple Fork Lodge. You can look it up, and it's for rent. So you can rent it, and you can come have your vacation here if you like. It's got 9 bedrooms and sleeps 35 people. It's a big house. And it's got 80 acres of land and a lake and all sorts of stuff. So what was the eugenics program? Eugenics is just simply trying to engineer people via who gets born or who gets killed. That's eugenics. And there were many different permutations of eugenics program. And the eugenics program was actually first proposed by Charles Darwin. And that's one of the outgrowths of the belief in evolution, is that if you believe in just random evolution, then there is no such thing as morality. And if you really want people to thrive, then you should take the people who are healthiest and strongest and only allow them to breed. And you should not allow people who are weak, sickly, or undesirable to breed. And then the whole world just gets better, right? I mean, that's the point behind eugenics. But that really it goes against what the Bible says, that all men are created in the image of God. So, there you go. Next question. What part of America will be safest if America divides? Most likely rural areas in the South will likely be safest. Next question. Is it in the best interest that Islam is brought to an end? That's not going to happen. There are over a billion Muslims on planet Earth. And so that's a ridiculous thought experiment. Mr. Toby Winks says, when will an audio version of your book be available? Whenever I get around to making it. I just haven't got around to that, but it is in my plans. I do plan to make it available. Rudy Martinez says, is in the best interest for Jews that they should go and build the Jewish temple anyway? I mean, there are segments of Jewish population who want to do that. And there are Christians who want that to happen as well. Next question. Any thoughts on why specifically the Brits population is falling, not to mention that of the EU? Yes, social media, pornography, and birth control and abortion, and homosexual rights. Because when you look at all of those things, they all lead to fewer babies, less human flourishing. And so there you go. Scuba Dude says, is the document you published on how to organize church security still available? Not at the moment, but it's coming out in book form early this next year. So Scuba Dude, hang on. You'll be able to get a copy of that when it comes out. But I'm going through a publisher for this one, so I'm not in charge of the timeline on that. Does anyone remember the reporter who was asking that illegal immigrants what countries they came from? And this one Middle Eastern guy said, you'll know where I'm from in time. Yeah, that was Ben Berquam, actually, that asked that guy, I believe, who asked him that question down on the southern border. And I think that guy turned out to be from Iran, if I remember right. Next question. USA country is founded on the Constitution and will continue to function on the Constitution. Many soldiers have and will keep it. Full stop. That sounds like a comment, not a question. So we'll leave it at that. All right, folks, we are over an hour, and I'm going to go spend some time with my family. Glad to be back here. But please do visit our sponsor, Preserve Gold. And thank you very much to Preserve Gold for sponsoring our podcast. Go to chuckholton.com for more. And we're going to be putting up a condensed version of this live a little later on. So God bless you. We'll see you again next time. Take care.